Magdalene, Maggie, Isaac's mom, or the one who hugs just a little too hard, whatever you want to call her. She's one of the original characters that has been there from the very start of the Binding of Isaac. Originally, all Isaac characters were based off D&D classes, and Maggie's class was a cleric, aka a healer, which explains her start with Yumhar and a full health pill. She's unlocked by getting 7 heart containers in the same run, and there's a very specific reason why it's 7 heart containers specifically. Today, we're going to take a look at the biblical lore of Mary Magdalene. I'll explain every connection I found, and we'll talk about why her achievements are the way they are. We'll talk about how much of this character has to do with the biblical figure versus how much she has to do with Isaac's mom, whose name is confirmed as Magdalene Moria. There's also a lot of widespread miscommunications about Mary Magdalene, so I'll explain the reality of it all and how these misconceptions got there to begin with. I plan to break down the lore of every single Binding of Isaac character one at a time, so if you do end up enjoying the video, please make sure you're subscribed because I have a lot more characters I need to break down. Now let's talk about Magdalene. A quick disclaimer, I say this word Gnostic a lot, but I pronounce the G in it, so just know it's pronounced Gnostic, not Gnostic like I say. Mary Magdalene was a woman known to travel with Jesus and his 12 disciples throughout their journeys. While not considered one of the apostles, she is today labeled by the church as the Apostles of Apostles, making her essentially an honorary apostle herself. An apostle is simply another word for Jesus' disciples, which essentially means messenger. Each of the disciples would later become an apostle because they would go on to spread Jesus' teachings and his message. Most of what we know about Magdalene comes from the Gospel of Luke. The Gospel of Luke is third of the 4 New Testament Gospels. It mostly revolves around the life of Jesus Christ from Luke's perspective. I'll explain this in detail a bit more later. In Luke 8:2-3, we hear of Magdalene for the first time as she follows Jesus throughout his travels, and is described as recently been exorcised. And no, this doesn't mean that Magdalene took up jogging to escape Baby Plum with an AK-47, but that she was exorcised of demons, 7 of them to be exact. 7 also happens to be the exact number of hearts needed to unlock Magdalene in the game, and there's just no way that's a coincidence. It's never explained why she had those demons inside of her, or how they were exorcised. It's implied that Jesus did it, but they don't really say. Honestly, out of all of the things to be vague about, why are they vague about this? The Bible is often very vague, but I just find it so hilarious how someone could have 7 demons inside of them, and Jesus Christ himself could exorcise them out of somebody, and it's all just glossed over. Stuff like this is honestly what I find so compelling about religion. Let's now talk about the widespread misinformation about Magdalene. Contrary to popular belief, she was not actually a prostitute, as pulp culture has come to suggest. The misconception comes from Pope Gregory I, who in the year 591 accidentally confused Mary Magdalene with Mary of Bethany, along with an unnamed sinful woman who helped wash Jesus' feet. On one hand, if you have multiple Marys in one book, yeah, it makes sense why you might get this confused. On the other hand, it is quite literally his job to know the difference, and since then everyone's been confused about it. The real Mary Magdalene was never a prostitute. The church has since admitted their mistake, but people still don't know the facts. I like to think of this all as high school drama. One guy spreads a rumor or just some misinformation about another person, and then suddenly the whole school thinks that person is a slut despite that person being the exact opposite. A lot of people nowadays do know the truth, however, and they are finally giving Mary the praise that she deserves. Most women in the Bible are identified by their relationship to another man, but that's not the case with Maggie at all. She was very independent, and it was alluded that she had a high social status and acted in whatever way she wanted to. It's honestly a shame that this truth was hidden for so long, and some people even say that Pope Gregory did this on purpose to fulfill a sexist agenda. But as far as I can tell, that part is just speculation. Speaking of high school gossip, there has been much speculation about the relationship between Jesus and Magdalene. She is often described as Jesus' favorite follower, and the only one who truly understood his teachings. In some texts, particularly the Gospel of Philip and a number of other Gnostic writings, this relationship even caused tension between Peter, Jesus' right-hand man, and Jesus himself. Peter was just very jealous of Magdalene's closeness with Jesus. Sounds like Peter had a crush on old Jesus. The Gnostic texts are considered not entirely canon, however, due to the majority of them being lost or not formally recognized by the church. So take this with a grain of salt. Basically, the Gnostic texts are a loose connection of very early Christian writings, and have very little evidence to back them up, if any. This text in particular is from the Gospel of Philip, thought to have been written after the real Mary Magdalene had already died. The Gospel of Philip seems to imply a deeper and almost romantic relationship between Magdalene and Jesus at times, even mentioning that the two had kissed on the mouth. A passage in the Gospel of Philip reads, "As for the wisdom who is called the barren, she is the mother of the angels, and the companion of the Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene loved her more than all the disciples, and used to kiss her often on the mouth. The rest of the disciples said to him, 'Why do you love her more than all of us?' The Savior answered and said to them, 'Why do I not love you like her? When a blind man and one who sees are both together in darkness, they are no different from one another. When the light comes, then he who sees will see the light, and he who is blind will remain in darkness." This passage was written sometime around the 3rd century before being lost in medieval times, and then being rediscovered in Egypt back in 1945. The church still does not accept the documents as true, and it's even missing entire passages just due to its age alone. Magdalene's closeness with Jesus didn't end here though. In all 4 of the canonical Gospels, Magdalene is said to have been present for both Jesus' death at the cross, as well as his resurrection. The 4 canonical Gospels are all accounts of what happened from 4 of Jesus' disciples. They are the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of Luke, and the Gospel of John. All 4 Gospels loosely follow the same events, but disagree on certain details here and there. Most scholars agree that to try and make all the stories match perfectly would be impossible, so it's generally agreed that the overall story is more important than the specific details. Magdalene being present for Jesus' crucifixion may even be referenced in the binding of Isaac through the achievement A Cross, which is unlocked by defeating Isaac as Magdalene. The cross, of course, being the horrible and excruciatingly painful way Jesus was killed and crucified. This also could potentially be referenced by the similar achievement Celtic Cross, which is unlocked by defeating Blue Baby as Maggie. In some versions of the Gospels, Maggie is by herself when she finds Jesus' tomb empty days later, but in others, she is present with a group of other women, including Mary. Mary as in Jesus' mom Mary. The Bible has a lot of Marys in it, and it can be very confusing. Basically, either alone or with a bunch of gal pals, she discovers that Jesus' body is missing. And when they arrive, they are so shocked and terrified to see the body gone that they decide to tell nobody and instead run away. Later on, however, Mary would see Jesus again, after he officially had come back from the dead. In some texts, particularly in John 21-10, Mary is approached by Jesus, but she doesn't recognize him at first, instead thinking he's a gardener. Jesus then tells her to tell the 11 remaining disciples that he's alive. Again, this is why Magdalene is called the Apostle of Apostles, as she's the messenger who told the messengers to spread the message. But if you think about it, God told Jesus to tell Mary to tell the disciples to tell the world about Jesus coming back to life. You would think that Jesus could just tell everyone himself, but I don't know, I guess he was busy like being God or whatever. To be honest, I can relate. I do have 40k subscribers on YouTube after all. Today, Magdalene is considered a saint by the Catholic Church, a saint being an important figure of Christianity, who is confirmed to have been given a special place in heaven for their deeds on earth. She is one of only 41 female saints formally recognized by the church, and throughout all versions of Christianity considered a hero of the faith. And that's the story of Mary Magdalene. I already explained some of the possible origins for some of the unlocks for Maggie's unlocks, but now I want to cover the rest. Not all of these are related to the Bible, but I think they're fun to try and dissect anyway. The purity achievement may be a reference to Magdalene's less than pure reputation she seems to have despite her actually never being a prostitute. The Eucharist achievement is a reference to Jesus himself, in particular, the ceremony commonly held in church during a mass, where Where bread is meant to represent Christ and is eaten by those who attend, this is also referenced by the item wafer, which is what the bread actually looks like. And Jesus juice is meant to represent the red wine that people drank. The red wine is supposed to represent the blood of Jesus. Most churches will let them have grape juice, which is why the item looks like this. But we're kind of getting off topic as these two items are not Maggie unlocks. Glyph of balance is a hard one to explain. A glyph is a hieroglyphic character or symbol, so clearly this is a symbol of balance. The only problem is I couldn't find that symbol in relation to balance. I kept seeing this triangle that meant connect or combined, but that's the closest thing I was able to find. I did find this moon glyph that means balance, but that's really it. I'm not sure what the design is based off. Maggie's faith is most likely just a reference to her faith in Jesus. A censer is just a container in which incense is burned. It's used a lot in religious ceremonies as a way to worship, which is funny considering the fact that the first use of one was just to make the church smell good. Guardian angel is simply an angel that is assigned to guide or protect a particular person or group, which is what Azazel was before God banished him out of heaven. Yuck hearts and candy hearts are probably just a reference to how Maggie was originally based off a cleric. The same goes for colorful baby and red baby. Colorful baby is a co-op baby that looks like a rainbow poop. Upon joining, the baby fully heals Isaac. Red baby is also a co-op baby that spawns with an extra red heart. I don't think there's anything to cute baby aside from the fact it's probably just Maggie as a co-op baby. As we know, the character Maggie is just Isaac dressing up as his mom, and that's where Maggie's bow comes from. Dauntless means showing fearlessness and determination. It's also the achievement that unlocks Tainted Maggie, which is the perfect word to describe her as her gimmick is based around running directly into enemies. Let's go over Tainted Maggie's unlocks now. The reversed lovers, Soul of Magdalene and Queen of Hearts, are most likely very straightforward at this point. Just like with the crown unlocks with Azazel, I'm not exactly sure what Holy Crown is referring to. Mother's Kiss must just be another reference to Maggie being Isaac's mom. I'll read the explanation for Belly Jelly right from the Isaac wiki. Belly Jelly is just the brand of jelly beans, Jelly Belly, but the words are flipped. Given the game's theme, this also might be a reference to the jelly spread on the belly before an ultrasound. And let me tell you, I never would have thought of the ultrasound parts. Hypercoagulation is a condition that causes your blood to clot more easily than normal. Another great way to end the video. Like I said, I intend to break down the biblical lore of every single Isaac character one at a time, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss them, and feel free to watch my previous videos on this topic. Leave a like if you enjoyed and let me know who you want me to cover next. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have a very happy Tuesday.